Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Awesome Wholesaler Experience Podcast, where we look into the many facets of the job, the career, and the lifestyle of investment and insurance product wholesaling. I am your host, the creator of the Awesome Wholesaler Experience, and yours truly, Awesome Mike. Hey, everyone, yet another very special guest today. And this guy is another local Michigan product. And he's worldwide now, though, but he started up in lovely Kalamazoo, Michigan. In fact, let me introduce you to him formally. In 1999, Robert Fross, that's right, I got him on the show, guys. Rob Fross is here. He co-founded Fross and Fross Financial with his brother Thomas, who also is a twin, by the way. Now, together they've helped hundreds of families in the Villages, Florida, to manage their wealth. Now, Rob is an accomplished public speaker. He frequently keynotes financial industry conferences, and he has spoken for companies including AXA Equitable, Transamerica Capital Management, my personal favorite, CNL, Grubb Ellis, American Realty Capital, was that lightning? ABS, Jackson National, and many others. Now, in early 2009, a year we might try to forget, but Robert and his brother, they co-founded Platinum Advisor Marketing Strategies. They stepped into the void there. Now, Platinum is a turnkey marketing solution that equips financial advisors with all the tools that they need to help attract and retain high net worth clients. Now, through his speaking and through Platinum, Rob has helped thousands of financial advisors build stronger businesses. Rob has been quoted numerous times in numerous industry publications, including the Wall Street Journal and Investment News. His writings have appeared in industry journals, including AdvisorOne and, of course, Investment Advisor. And he has appeared on many financial news channels, including Fox and CNBC. But this is the climactic crescendo of his career so far, being on the Awesome Wholesaler Experience Podcast today. Please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Robert, or I call him Rob Fross. Hey, Rob, how are you this morning?
Good. Hey, did my mom send you over that bio? Sorry, that was a little long, probably unnecessary, but thank you.
You know what? I appreciate the effort that goes into creating such a nice bio there. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you, when the cameras clicked on this morning, Rob is a jokester, because the only thing I was able to see was the luxurious locks of hair on the top of his head. So we were going to give it to him over this show, no doubt. But anyways, hey, Rob, before we get too far into the meat of the show here, I know there's a lot of our audience who's going to really benefit from your tips, tricks, and even some techniques. And but you know, you grew up in Kalamazoo, and you had a very famous high school mate, I believe, Derek Jeter. You went to the same high school as Derek Jeter. Give us some dirt on Mr. Baseball for our generation.
I don't know if there really is any. Yeah, we actually grew up a couple blocks away from each other and started playing baseball together in a little corner lot down the road. And I delivered his parents' newspaper, and he just was a really, really nice kid. He was a couple years behind me in high school, and he was good. I left, ended up in New York City, and I remember seeing the New York Post huge article, Yankees signed Derek Jeter, and I'm walking down a street in Brooklyn about to pick up a bagel, and I see this newspaper, and I see Derek's face, and I'm like, what? Really? Is he that good? Like, I mean, something happened, I think, those last couple of years, and he became larger than life. And I will say, you know, very good family. Good dad, kept a good eye on him, and I think it's really cool that he made it through his whole career as one of the good guys. You know, it's hard to imagine he was one of the Yankees' most prolific players ever, but what a great guy.
Yeah, and he thanks you for your 4 years of leadership and being a true inspiration to him in that corner lot and even on the baseball team, I'm sure. But it's kind of interesting. You know, this is America, the melting pot, and people can come from different places and reach different heights. You know, you and your twin brother jettisoned Michigan at an early age, and you know, I don't know if you spun the globe or took a dart and threw the dart, or if you strategically decided to pitch your tent in Florida. But how did you end up, and call it the humidity capital of the world, Central Florida?
Yeah, it's a good question. So after I left school, I ended up in New York City and worked for a few years. And I met I met who became my wife at the time. And she was from this little town in Florida I'd never heard of called Ocala. And I came down to visit, fell in love with the place. Of course, when you're from Michigan or really anywhere in the Midwest, the Florida is like the promised land. So to end up in Florida before you're retired and too old to really enjoy it, I guess is probably everybody's dream. Every summer, we just dreamed of the opportunity to go to Florida and spend some time. Um, so I ended up marrying Amy and moved to Florida and got married. And unfortunately, she got sick with breast cancer and passed away in 2010. But by that point, it was already home. My family, my two brothers had moved down. We had all started working together. Obviously, this is a great place to pitch a tent. At the time, I remember driving south of Ocala, and I saw this little mobile home park and called Orange Blossom Gardens. And at the time, there was probably a few thousand people that lived in this mobile home park. And never would I have imagined that fast forward to 2019, it's the largest retirement community in the world. It's the fastest growing U.S. city for 5 years in a row. 130,000 retirees that I can reach by golf cart. Literally, if you jump out of an airplane anywhere within probably 15 minutes of my office, you're going to land on somebody's golf cart. So it's a very good place. I live actually in Ocala. I drive down. It's about a 30-minute drive, but it's really an amazing place to have an office.
Yeah, that's a great story. And deep condolences and for your loss, and hopefully Amy is resting in peace and looking down with graces for you and your family moving forward. And sorry to hear about that. Great story about Orange Blossom Gardens, though. I never knew that was the original, kind of a neighborhood there. So you guys decided to build a life down there, and you didn't start your career, let's say, as a financial advisor. You guys were arguably very successful construction professionals, construction guys. Can you tell us about the transition and what kind of drew you into the financial services industry?
Sure. So, yeah, originally I was in construction. I actually then became a wholesaler. So I have a lot of empathy for the wholesalers in our industry. I worked for a manufacturing company, and during the years I had different territories. At one point I had all of Florida. At one point I had Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, Louisiana, and Mississippi as a territory. And my daughter was born, and I decided that I didn't want to be an absentee dad. So again, for all the wholesalers that spend so much time away from their families, I have a lot of empathy because I was in that situation. And I left at the time a pretty lucrative career to try to start something else. Tom had interviewed with an insurance company, and they sold life insurance, long-term care insurance, fixed annuities. And he came to me and said, "Hey, I did this interview. I think it would be a good opportunity." I told him I had a twin, and they said, "Why don't you have him come in?" And so I went in, and we both ended up taking a job with them. And pretty quickly, we were top agents in the country for them. I had a friend who was in the financial services industry who had left that company and started a financial planning firm down in the Villages. He was just outside the Villages. And I ran into him once, and he said, "Hey, I'm kind of thinking about ruling the world. I really want to take over the Villages." At the time, it was a mom and pop shop. Like literally, it was his mom answering the phone and his father-in-law doing paperwork and just him. And so I kind of returned the favor and said, "Hey, I have a twin." And we could both come aboard, and we did. We all three set off to really do some amazing things for people in the Villages. And it was a really easy transition because when I was selling insurance, one thing that always surprised me was I would be in someone's house who I was selling a long-term care insurance policy to, for example. But we would talk to them about their money to make sure it was a good fit. And I would meet all these people that had a lot of money, but they had no relationship with their advisor. They had no idea what they owned or why they owned it. And I just always scratched my head and just thought, it just doesn't make sense. Like, I feel like people deserve better. They deserve to have a good relationship with their advisor. And so when I migrated into the financial planning space, I kind of set off with this target to provide a better experience for people than they were already getting. And so that's kind of what made me migrate over. So I'll kind of give you the long story, but I'll make it very brief. The guy that I worked with is a really, really great guy. He smarter than both of us put together. I learned pretty quickly, though, that I couldn't really do what he did. All the things that we're told not to do, like to speak to the clients at their eye level, make sure that they understand everything we're saying. He was like way up here, and people had no idea what he was talking about, but they knew he was so smart, they were willing to do whatever he recommended. And so Tom and I had to kind of make it on our own. And so what we would do is we'd go to every conference and we would seek out every top producer and we would say, what do you do? What makes you great? And so through that, we learned all these really, really great ideas. I always say that I don't think there's anybody's ever come up with a new idea in like 1,000 years. It's just somebody else's idea spun around and kind of made to your own. And that's certainly the case with us. So in 2007, we had a little bit of a disagreement with our partner on the focus. We wanted to become more exclusive, have a minimum client size. We knew that we couldn't continue to take on so many clients that we couldn't service them all. And so that's when in 2007, we had a friendly divorce with our business partner, and Tom and I set off and formed Fross and Fross Wealth Management. And so that was sort of the beginning of what has now become, a pretty amazing place here.
Amazing indeed. And that's a great origin story. Appreciate you sharing that. I don't know if it's Murphy's Law. My wife's maiden name is Murphy. So for the last over 2 decades now, 22 years, I've been used to what can go wrong going wrong. But if you had that friendly divorce and left that other person in 2007, is the Great Recession in 2008 and 9, your fault?
Oh, man, I wish I could say that I didn't cause it, but sure, you can blame me. Yeah, the timing was pretty bad. So you got to imagine, we left, we joined a new broker-dealer. This is like in June of 2007. And our broker-dealer apparently had a problem with another office down in Naples. And so the state wouldn't approve any new offices. So we sent out a letter telling all of our clients we're leaving. We open up shop, and then the state says, sorry, we're not going to approve your firm. And so for 30 days we sat here and just like couldn't even contact any of our clients. It was just a complete disaster. And then of course the market crash happened, and it was a fun time. So I'm glad we're through it. Most people never have any idea. That's where I got all this gray hair from. It came at that time.
And that's what we call a humble brag. Yeah, well, that's exciting. And so you transition over, and you really, I'm sure that once the traction happened, you really caught some wind in your sails, and enough to where you and Tom said, hey, you know what? We have something here. We have this thing, the way we do business, and a lot of advisors probably could benefit from this. We can make a business out of it in addition to our planning business. And you started up Platinum Advisor Marketing Strategies, or we just call it Platinum in the
right.
show. And I was actually very fortunate because I believe I got to see one of your very first few presentations, and you guys were a hit from the beginning. But tell us a little bit about maybe why you started Platinum, and then if you could even tailor the discussion to providing value for other advisors, because that's what a lot of the audience that's on here does as well.
Sure. So I wish I could tell you that we had this grand scheme and we knew how it was going to work out. We really didn't. Tom came to me in end of 2008, beginning of 2009. And we were part of a study group, and we were sharing our ideas, and his assistant, excuse me, was on the telephone with one of our friend's assistants for a couple hours, sharing some ideas and sending her some of our office systems and stuff. And Tom kept going in, and he's like frustrated that she's on the phone with this other guy's assistant because he needed her. And so he comes to my office and says, this is ridiculous. We need to like sell this stuff. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, we're always giving this stuff away for free. I mean, every time somebody calls, we're like sharing our ideas. Why don't we charge for it? And I said, it's a really bad idea. I said, I think it's going to spread us too thin. I was really against it. At the time, also, of course, my wife was sick. And so the idea of starting another business didn't seem appealing. I thought eventually maybe we'll have 50 guys who will subscribe to this. And if so, how much would we have to charge to where it'd be worthwhile? And anyway, long story made short, Tom, I guess we thumb wrestled or paper rock, paper, scissors or something, and he won. And so we launched Platinum. And we were asked by our broker dealer to speak at their national conference. And so we put together a speech called The 7 Traits of a Platinum Advisor. And the premise of it was, in our industry, we're always told to pick up platinum clients. But nobody ever stops and asks, am I a platinum advisor? I mean, do I deserve a platinum client? Am I a platinum advisor? And so the premise of this was we took all of these ideas that we had gotten through the years, talking to all the top reps and finding out what made them successful. And we narrowed it down to 7 things. And so we spoke at our broker dealer at our national conference on this speech. And at that speech was the national sales manager for AXA and Transamerica. And they came up to us afterwards and said, guys, we want that speech. We want you guys to go and speak for our wholesalers. You know, they were doing the wholesalers were always going around and putting together a meeting of like 50 advisors. And they were looking for another reason to have advisors show up and not just hear an annuity pitch or a REIT pitch, right? And so the idea of an advisor sharing his secrets was pretty appealing to them. And so that was sort of the launch. We started Platinum. Very quickly, we ramped up. The timing was really good, Mike, because at the time, it was 2009. Advisors were marketing for the first time in 30 years because fees were down 50% and nobody could get anything approved through compliance. And so it was pretty easy to say, look, you can have access to everything. And so we launched Platinum with this kind of a humble goal, which is we'll just take the things that have made us successful, we'll package them, we'll put them on a website, and anybody can have access to them. So, for example, all of our communication to our clients, our weekly market commentaries, monthly video scripts, white papers when something really shocking happens, we're going to make it available. The advisor doesn't have to worry about it. We'll help them get it approved through compliance, and they can send it out. Client events, which I'll get back to in a little bit, but that was a big one. You know, one of the things that we found was that top producers at some point had transitioned from just spending all their time trying to get new clients to taking care of the clients that they had. And so client events really were a catalyst for our business. And so we said, we'll take all the client events we've ever done, we'll package them up, we'll give you the step-by-step process on how to do it, we'll give you the invitation, and we'll give it all to you. And so all of those things, public seminars, all of our office systems, all of those things. And quickly, within a very short period of time, it wasn't 50 reps, but we had 2,000 reps around the country who were subscribing to all of our services. Now, so Platinum became much larger. You know, we used to joke, it was at the time, it was in our lunchroom over at Fross and Fross. We took our office manager at the time and we kind of put him in charge of running this outside business activity for us. And he hired one designer. And then pretty soon we had to move to a different facility, and it was a whole separate company. We had at one time 32 employees. We had, you know, it was a separate offsite location 15 minutes away from Fross and Fross. So it was a whole separate company. Fortunately, Tom and I, one of our secrets to our success was always hiring really great people and getting out of their way. And so we were able to still kind of maintain our day job at Fross and Fross running that, and then let Robert run Platinum for us and manage the staff and kind of handle all that. So that was kind of how Platinum, I'm not embarrassed to say I voted against it, but it was a pretty good idea that Tom had, and it certainly did succeed.
Well, kudos to you and to Tom for making that, you know, kind of vision a reality. And you're right. I have my notes here. You know, you have an army of support personnel, and I believe a lot of that probably was for Platinum, maybe also your own business. We'll talk about that in a second, but I want to kind of put a bow on Platinum. You know, you were able to successfully sell that company, sell that business, which is every business owner's dream, for a nice, I'm sure, a tidy profit last year. You still maintain position and posture as the face, and you also do some kind of call it public speaking and some other things. But tell us how the sale of that business came about and what it looks like going forward for advisors that want to partake in it.
Sure. So first of all, I think one of the things that made Platinum successful was we weren't just a marketing company. We were for advisors by advisors, right? I mean, there's lots of marketing companies who say, here's what you need to do. I've always used this analogy of like, we go to every conference and there's some coach who says, you know what you need to do? You need to fish. So you need to go to that pond over there and you need to fish, right? And so he says, here's what you need to do. We've all heard it. You need to, and I'm sure you guys have heard it too, right? Here's what you need. You need to communicate more effectively to your clients. You need to have client events. That's the gold at the end of the rainbow. Systematize your practice. Now go do it. And then we all leave and we're like, wow, that's awesome. Like, that's a great idea. And we don't implement any of it. I've always said that conferences are like the biggest black hole of good ideas ever invented, because we get all these really great ideas and no way to implement it. And we go back home and we have to try to get back into life. And we don't ever do it. And so Platinum was really born out of our own frustration that everybody said, go fish, and nobody helped us fish. So what really made Platinum unique was we didn't just say, go to that pond and fish. We said, we're going to take you to the pond. We're going to take the same rod and reel that we use. We're going to bait it for you, and we'll cast it out. We'll hand you the rod and reel, right? So for example, we didn't just say do client events. Like, how many times have advisors heard, go do a wine tasting, right? And then they never do it. Like, very few, a very small percentage of advisors have ever had a wine tasting. Why? Because they're not sommeliers, first of all. Most of us are not. Secondly, I mean, I love wine. I'm not a sommelier. Secondly, I'm not an event coordinator. And thirdly, what makes us successful usually hurts us, and that is that we have great ideas and we're procrastinators and never do it. So the idea to say, go have a wine tasting, and by the way, I'll give you the invitation to the event. I'll customize it for you and I'll mail it out to your clients for you. I'll give you the step-by-step process on what to do 6 weeks before the event, all the way down to an hour before the event, reminding you to turn the air conditioning down in your office because there's going to be 30 people there, right? Tell you what wine to get, where to get it, and give you the tasting notes on the wine. That is how granular Platinum was. And that's the reason that our advisors are so highly successful, because we make it really simple. The production increases that we've seen with our members is just amazing. I mean, I've seen advisors go from 300,000 a year in production to 3 million a year in production, simply by doing all the things that we did at Platinum. Nobody has to reinvent the wheel. And so that's why it was successful. We were approached by a private equity firm that owns other companies in our space last year. And they wanted to know if we would be willing to sell Platinum. I didn't know if I didn't think I'd ever sell it. It was kind of our baby, and the idea of giving our baby to somebody else. Now I know, I have a 20-year-old daughter. I know what fathers must go through when they marry their daughter off. It's a scary proposition to let someone else manage the life of their daughter. That's how we kind of felt. This was our baby, it was our children, and the idea of losing it was frightening. But we had also run a marathon for 18 years. I've spoken every Del Frisco's and, Ruth Chris from here to California and back. And the idea to let someone else manage the day-to-day responsibilities and me only have to run one business was pretty exciting. And so August last year, we sold the company. We are now a FMG company. So FMG, who handles most of the websites for financial advisors, they actually own us. It was really a kind of a match made in heaven, because FMG had the portal to deliver content. They had the website. They also were into social media. They had the ability to handle all of an advisor's social media, their Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. They needed the content. We had all the content. And so it was really a nice merger for Platinum to become an FMG company. Fortunately, when the private equity firm that owns them buys companies, the owners no longer stay part of the company. And Tom and I were fortunate to still have a small part in Platinum. We've been asked to stay on and speak at conferences and help provide content. And so it's kind of fun now, because I have the excitement of being part of the company without all the responsibilities of managing staff.
You speak about it like a proud father would. And you remind me of a friend of mine who really dodged and avoided being a parent for many years. And then once he became a parent, was so grateful that he had a chance to experience that. And now it's the best thing ever. And it'll be interesting to see him transition his children out of his home. So it's a very compelling story. Congratulations to you and to Tom and to all of the staff behind that success. I have to ask you though, in my notes, I found another Fross, Patrick Fross. And I looked I'm like, mirror trick with mirrors. What's going on here? How many Fross brothers are there out there?
There's just three of us. There's three of us. We all work together now. Patrick came to work for us in 2010. And at that time, because my wife had just passed away, I realized that I couldn't be in all places at the same time. I remember I was sitting in hospice and I got a call from a client and I had to step away from my wife and take the call in the lobby. And I got off the phone and I just said, this is really stupid. Like, somebody else has to be able to know these clients. It was kind of a nice thing because it forced us to hire other advisors and have them develop a relationship with our clients so that if I'm ever not available, somebody else could be able to do it. So at the time Patrick came to work for us, Patrick is just an amazing, amazing part of the team. He also is one of those really high IQ, smartest guys in the room, guys. And Patrick is amazing. Patrick consistently now attracts $30 to $40 million himself of new assets into the firm. He's an amazing part of the team, and we're so fortunate to have him.
Is he the baby brother?
He's not. He looks like it. Everybody thinks he is, but actually Patrick's about 2 years older.
Okay, good. Saving
He
grace.
He loves that though. So if you tell him he's a baby brother, you'll score some points with him.
I was going to feel bad for the guy because I'm sure you and Tom are just thumping on him, but maybe you do that anyways. But that's kind of it's very cool. Cool is a Midwest term, but I think it's very admirable that you three can work together. How is it to work with your brothers?
It's great. I mean, I'm not going to say it hasn't come with its challenges, but the nice thing about all three of us is that we all have the same goal. We all look at things very differently. Even Tom and I, people assume because we're identical twins that we must look at things the same way. Actually, we're very, very different personalities. And that forces us to look at things from a different perspective. So the three of us, there have been times where we sit down in a room and, we almost go to blows on stuff. But when we leave the room, we all come with a consensus. And there's nobody that cares about our business more than the three of us. And so there's nobody I'd rather work with than those two guys.
Yeah, it's great to hear. Now, I also have to compliment one of your team members, Will Gunn. Will Gunn is a terrific writer. I've enjoyed reading a lot of the things that he's written for you guys over the years, I suppose. So kudos to Will. He's a great writer, and kudos to you guys for embracing the evolution of our business, the social media, the events on a grander scale, and anything that you've seen as of late that wholesalers should consider doing to help advisors move forward, or that they should stop doing because it's outdated or it's actually detrimental.
Sure. Well, I hate going to lunch and having somebody put a prospectus in front of me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I need to know the product. I need to know what makes you different. I want to work with wholesalers that care about my business and care as much about the growth and success of my business as I do. And so the wholesalers that we really have great respect for are the wholesalers who bring us ideas that can help us grow our business. And this is not necessarily a self-serving suggestion because, quite frankly, whether or not another advisor ever joins Platinum or not is not going to change my way of life. But wholesalers that take something like Platinum or some other great idea and use it as a business building idea really succeed. I mean, we have some really great wholesalers, and I have wholesalers that have gone out to the marketplace, gone to other advisors and said, I have an idea that can help you grow your business. So rather than saying, you know what, Rob, why don't you do a client event and I'll show up and sponsor it? And we all know what happens. For the advisors that might be listening, they're like, no, it's not me. I would never do that. For the wholesalers, they're like, oh my God, like are you in the back seat of my car? So you pitch this idea, have an event. I'll show up and sponsor it. And then what happens? A week before the event, the advisor calls and says, I'm really sorry, I never got around to scheduling it. I need to cancel that. Or worse yet, the wholesaler shows up and he sits through this just horrible, devastating thing. He wants to take a knife and like stab himself in the jugular and bleed out. He just can't. He's watching this horrible train wreck happen. And then he has to pay for it or a portion of it. And then the advisor doesn't get any business out of me. He goes, well, that sucked. Like, client events don't work or public events don't work, right? And so to go to an advisor and say, I have a great idea, do a wine tasting, use Platinum's materials, I'll show up and sponsor it, or do a state of the markets address. Platinum will provide a 50-slide PowerPoint presentation explaining what happened in the market the last 6 months and why. They'll give you all the speaker notes. It's all compliance approved. You can sit in front of clients or prospects and show that you are the resource, not Jim Cramer on CNBC. Those wholesalers that provide ideas like that, I think, are the ones who endear themselves to advisors, and then advisors are then more apt to be able to use their tools and their resources and do business with them. So those are the wholesalers that I really like, the ones who, it's just like, it's no different from how we treat our clients, right? If it's just about business, then my clients are going to be able to see through that. If they know I really care about them and I care about their lives, then I'm going to be a friend to them and they're going to care about the success of my business. It's no different with a wholesaler.
Yeah, that's great info. Now, you've got us salivating here. How can we find more information about Platinum and actually implement what you just offered? Is there a better website than another one?
PlatinumStrategies.com is the website. You can go there and you can kind of test drive the website, get a sample username and password, reach out to the team over there, the sales department, and for wholesalers, they can provide a sample username and password. They can set up a demo, a webinar where they can show you all the tools and all the things that we provide. And then a wholesaler then can talk intelligently. I will caution you, in the years that we've had Platinum, occasionally we'll have a wholesaler that will call up and say, look, I got this really great producer. I want to help him grow a business. I want to pay for his Platinum membership. And I would urge them not to do that. If the advisor doesn't have skin in the game, they're not going to see the value. So what I would prefer is them to say, tell the advisor, you sign up for it, I'll show up and sponsor your first event, or I'll cover your first 6 months, but get the advisor to actually use the tools rather than just provide it to them for free.
That's best practices. And again, it's Platinum
Strategies.com.
PlatinumStrategies.com. Pretty simple, even for a knucklehead from Michigan like me. I appreciate that. And just cheers to many more years of success with that platform. As you've done that and the thousands of advisors that you've seen out there, can you give us 1 or 2, 3 things that you see consistently that propels that advisor to kind of break through to that, profitable business level?
Sure. Well, I've always said there's no silver bullet. So any advisor that's just looking for that one thing, they're not going to find it. It's a combination of things that really work. I would argue that we live in one of the crappiest generations in history. We live in a generation where it's just this pump your own gas, voicemail call waiting generation, and the human touch, human element is sorely lacking. And advisors that provide that are, I think, win. We go to conferences and we hear these consultants say, if you want referrals, you need to do? You need to ask your clients. Just ask them. Tell them you're trying to grow your business. Ask them for referrals. It doesn't work. And I'll tell you why that advice was given. At some point, our business transitioned from being a one-time sell to a relationship business. And here's the difference. Car dealers, car salesmen, they have to ask for referrals because it's one and done. But restaurants don't need to ask for referrals. Relationships don't need to ask for referrals. If you have a good attorney, he doesn't have to ask you for a referral. He just needs to take amazing care of you. And if you find somebody that needs the services, you'll provide it. Now, somebody, though, came up with this idea who said, just give people 5 business cards and they'll just share them with their friends. And I'm not sure who came up with that advice, but I'm pretty sure it was a guy who sold business cards. And he cheapened our business. He taught us that all we have to do is ask for it. It's not true. But there's a collage of things. And I think if I was to narrow it down to a couple, here's one of them. There's a certain percentage of people who are just referral people. Our research says it's 20%. 20% of people are referral people. They, everywhere they go, they tell all their friends about it. They're trying to help everybody grow their businesses. You don't have to do anything. They just are referral people. 20%, if you could walk on water, heal the dead, cure leprosy, 12 buddies followed you around in sandals everywhere, they would never give you a referral, right? But the 60% in the middle, here's what our research says about that 60. Those are not necessarily referral people, but they refer people to their friends' businesses. So how do we become a friend in the eyes of our clients? If our clients view us simply as a business, they're not going to refer. That 60% isn't going to do it. But if we can somehow convert that client from a business relationship to a personal relationship via client events, getting them to spend time with us and our family. For example, one of the things that Tom and I are very passionate about is our new client mixers. Within the first few months after working with our firm, we invite all of our clients to our home. We want them to see us at our home with our family. There's something magical that happens when a client walks through our threshold and they meet our kids and they pet our dog. It's like referral pixie dust. They no longer see us just as a business. They see us as a person with a real family, and they become bought into the success of our business. And so developing that relationship, the advisors that call their clients and invite them to lunch and invite them to have cocktails and throw client events where they're not just all educational, they're also fun. That is really important. So one thing that's missing, we all want referrals, but we have to provide a forum for our clients to be able to do the referral. In other words, if you just say, hey, so I have a relationship with Mike, and I say, hey, call my buddy Mike. Mike will take good care of you. John probably isn't going to call Mike. But if I provide the forum, if I say, hey, Mike's having a wine tasting, or Mike's having a state of the markets address, you should come with me. Then now I provided the forum. Now there's a much better chance that John's going to actually get a chance to meet Mike. So that's one thing that we're very passionate about. We're very passionate about the systemization of our firm. I started at the outset by saying that, we all want platinum clients, but we never ask, are we platinum advisors? How many times do advisors drop the ball on things and things fall between the cracks? And the reason why my thought process on this is most advisors are not entrepreneurs. Business owners are typically entrepreneurs, but financial advisors aren't. We didn't set off and say, you know what, I want to own a business. Do I want to own a shooting range? Do I want to own a gas station? No, you know what, I'm going to own a financial planning firm. Somehow we all got into the business and then we became business owners, but we're not entrepreneurs, so we don't necessarily run our business like businesses should. But what we've seen is that advisors who are really good about being very systematized, hiring the right people and getting out of their way. At Fross and Fross, we have an office manager. Her name is Rhonda. She does everything. Tom and I don't do anything at Fross and Fross. We meet with clients. That's it. She runs the business. She manages the staff. We don't do that. We have a marketing person. We tell her what we want done. She does it. So the advisors who are able to do it, they're uniquely qualified to do, and then highly systematized. I'll give you an example, Mike. We have a step-by-step process from 6 weeks from the day a client becomes a client to 6 weeks later. And it's very important. This is a scary time in a client's life. They've left the advisor that they worked with for 30 years, and they're going to work with you. And I'll give you sort of an analogy. Imagine how it would have worked if you dated your wife. You finally proposed when you thought she would probably say yes. You got down on one knee, you popped a question, she slid the ring on her finger, and then she didn't hear from you for 6 weeks. Can you imagine? No wonder 50% of marriages end up in divorce, right? But that's what clients go through. They make this decision to work with us. We court them. We finally pop the question, and then they don't hear from us. We have this step-by-step process while our staff is busy egg-hatting things over and getting things set up. Our staff is constantly reaching out to touch the client and letting them know what's going on. Those are the little things that really set our office apart as different, that then make us more referable. So it's twofold. Not only do we have better quality of life because we know that we're taking good care of our clients and we have less problem clients, but they're happier, and in return, they're not afraid to introduce their friends to us.
Wow. Thank you. That was a pot of gold. And those of you that are in the audience, you're welcome. That was terrific, Rob. Appreciate that very much. Now, how about from a wholesaler perspective? You mentioned, let me even back up before I ask you that question. I've read elsewhere that you want to maintain your character. You want to stay in character, which can be friendly with your clients. And I imagine Oz in The Wizard of Oz really wishes that they wouldn't have looked behind the curtain and seen that he's a little stumpy, balding man and not the great and powerful Oz. So how did you bridge that gap? And I'm almost going to answer my own question here in anticipation of yours, but are you just really genuine? Are you just who you are, and you are transparent, you're basically vulnerable, and you let the chips fall where they may, and you provide an honest service for the clients, and you're not trying to be Oz and put on a facade?
That's it. I'll share with you a motto that we live by here at Fross and Fross. We might impress people with our strengths, but we connect with people through our weaknesses. And our clients seeing us in our element, them seeing us as real people, I think is very important. Our wholesalers the same way. We don't want, especially if you're a successful firm, we see our fair amount of wholesalers, and everybody's telling us why they're slightly different than anybody else. And the wholesalers that make it about business, but also about personal, those are the wholesalers that we really connect with. And so when we are looking for something, who do you suppose that we migrate to? The wholesaler that it's all business, or the wholesaler that also we see him as a real person, we feel connected to him, we want to help him grow his own business also? Those are the wholesalers. So I don't think it's really any different. I think all the tools that we use at Platinum to help advisors, all the things that we do at Fross and Fross, I think all of those things are very portable to a wholesaler. What did I do for my clients when I was a wholesaler? It's interesting. I look back, 20 some odd years ago when I was a wholesaler for this manufacturing firm, and it wasn't really any different. I remember I had a dealer who was having his first grandchild, and I sat at the hospital with him from 2:00 in the morning until 8 a.m. when his daughter-in-law finally gave birth. And I sat in the waiting room waiting for the birth, and he always knew that I cared about him as a person, that I was part of the family. And so I was the first person I was the one he always looked to give business. I know that the wholesalers that listen to this already are probably the top echelon, because otherwise, they're the ones who care about growing their business. They want to know what advisors have to say. So they're probably doing a lot of these things already, but just know that it doesn't.
We're good. And that's great advice there. The relationship, though, can have different depths. And what do you say to the wholesaler or even the financial advisor that maybe is very introverted? I mean, you have to have a certain amount of guts to put yourself out there. And what if they just want to, come to work, talk about their products, features, and benefits, provide decent value, be on time, be courteous, be presentable, and then move on? Are they going to fall into that, ocean of similar wholesalers that are out there? And is it a worthy investment in your time and effort and courage to stand for something and to, be who you are?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think they will. I mean, they're not gonna stand out from the crowd. That's for sure. I mean, they're gonna look like every other financial advisor that all treats their clients the same way. So I would say to those advisors, start small. Start small, spend time, call your best client and invite them out to dinner, just your wife and the two of them. Have them invite a friend. So now it's just a small group. It's only 6. Start small. Wholesalers the same way. Some of them, they might just be hardwired that it's all business. But I would say that they need to step out of their element and they need to try to do things a little differently. I think we all know that top producers in any industry, they don't do the same thing the same way everybody else does. They look for ways to be different. And it might not always be comfortable, but those are the things that set you apart and make you different. And by the way, for a financial advisor, if they have really good staff, they can pick up where they're weak. Some advisors, personally, I'm not afraid of public speaking. I would, quite honestly, I'd rather be in a crowd. I'd rather be on stage in front of 1,000 than 100 or 10. 10 actually scares me to death. I have no problem being on CNBC. It just doesn't bother me. I do realize, though, that there are some people who would rather, literally on their list of priorities, they would rather die than public speak. And if that's the case, here's what I would say. First of all, it's okay to go take public speaking lessons. Even for an advisor who likes to speak, be great at your trade. And the same advice goes for wholesalers. No advisor wants a wholesaler to offer to come and speak at a meeting and do a bad job. So enroll in Dale Carnegie. Refine yourself, make yourself great at what you do. And if advisor really is just somebody who just really could never do it, there are some advisors that I think the two of us know, with all the coaching and help in the world, that guy's just probably not the right guy. He needs to surround himself with somebody that can. He needs to have somebody there that can. If he's just not warm and fuzzy, he needs to have staff that is that way, who can, for example, our staff at the front desk, they're great at looking for ways to impress our clients. If I have a client that's in the lobby and they pick up on, they're having a grandchild, they'll get on Amazon and send them a baby gift. If they like the coffee table book there in front of the sofa in our lobby, they're going to get on Amazon and send them a copy and say, hey, I knew you liked this book. I thought you'd want your own copy. We surround ourselves with people who love people. You can't teach that. Either you love people or you don't. So surrounding yourself with really good people, I think it can also be a solution to that. Same thing with wholesalers. Maybe they're not great at it, but if they have the right internal who really can pick up where they're weak, that can be a big boost.
Let's talk about that in a little more depth, maybe a couple layers of the onion. What if I'm a great wholesaler? I'm charming. I have a great story. We play golf together. We go to jujitsu class together. Our kids go to the same school. But my product is just let's say a B-. How does that wholesaler that their company's product maybe, not the shiniest button on the jacket, how do they overcome that?
It's tough. When I first got in the business, it was really relationship selling. And I'm embarrassed to say that in fairness, a lot of the products back in those days were very similar. So it was much easier to do business with the guys that you really liked. Now we live in a different regulatory world. And you have to be able to sit in front of a regulator and be able to argue why that recommendation was the best. So if I'm a wholesaler and I don't have the shiniest button, I need to understand that advisors need to do what's right for their clients. But I can also try to find a small fit. There are times where I might have something that it might have a small segment in an advisor's practice. But as times change, whether it be my product changes and all of a sudden I'm no longer B-, I'm A or A+, then that changes and I have that relationship. It might be that for a time, you need to develop a relationship with somebody who you might not get a lot of business from now, but know that down the road, we all know that wholesalers don't always work for the same company. I'll tell you, my favorite wholesaler has worked for 5 different companies since I've worked for him, or worked with him rather. And, there have been times where he worked for companies where he was a B- and he didn't get any of my business, but he was always there. He would always call and touch base. I knew that when the timing was right, that he would get my business again, and sure enough, he did.
Rob, what do you value more? Do you value the wholesaler who is loyal to a company, and when that cylinder, I use the analogy of like a slot machine, and you have to get 3 sevens. They have to like you be a 7 on a 1 to 10 scale. They have to like your company, has to be at least a 7, and then the product has to be a 7. Do you value the wholesaler that stays true to the company and guts it out and carries the varnished button of a product, and then hopefully they get a good product on the line? Or do you value the guy or the wholesaler, the gal that says, you know what, I've got to work for my client. My client is the financial advisor, and I'm going to go seek out the better product and bring that product to them?
Yeah, the latter. Um, and so maybe upper management who might be listening to the podcast might not like to hear this, but at the end of the day, the wholesalers who view us as their client, if they don't have the right product, they need to keep their ears open and find the right product and find the right company to work for. Because, here's the problem. Advisors do have memories like elephants, and we're pretty smart. Otherwise, we wouldn't do what we do. And if a wholesaler is constantly trying to pitch me on something that is not the right product, I've always said, don't pee in my face and tell me it's raining. I'm smarter than that. So if it's not the right fit, tell me it's not the right fit. Don't try to convince me that this product is going to be good for me and my clients when I know it's not. And by the way, if you stay in something as the world blows up around you, when you do move to another company, even though you might have a great product, I will remember that you had me in a bad spot and you allowed this thing to happen to me. So I prefer honesty out of my wholesaler. You're on my team. Act like it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think I learned that, probably from you and your brother and others years ago, that you are trusting me to do the due diligence and to not, come to you and tell you that my product is the greatest thing since sliced bread if I really don't believe that it is. So as a wholesaler, and a lot of my brothers and sisters that are listening to this, it is our responsibility not to sell you whatever product that my company produces, but to sell you what I believe is the right product, or provide you the right product from whichever company it might be. And I think that upper management that is listening, hopefully they take it to heart and say, well, okay, not only do I need good people representing my firm, but I also need to work on the product. And instead of just looking for someone who's never heard of our company because of our bad history, let's work on the product, and that should attract as well as provide our people with some some better product to go pursue advisors with. Appreciate you saying that. Hey, we're coming up on our time here, Rob, and I could talk to you for hours. Us, good Midwest people can do that, but let's shift gears a little bit. I want to ask you my signature questions. And there is no right answer, wrong answer. It's a lot of fun. I'm eager to hear what you're going to say.
Is this the one where you asked me if I'm going to start wearing my hair like you? I actually think it would look really good on me. It would be a lot less work in the morning. Sorry, go ahead.
I always tell people that being bald is great, but going bald really sucks. So appreciate the humor there, a little levity. Question number 1, Rob, if you could pick up the telephone and on the other end of the line is 25-year-old young Robbie, or I don't know, you went by Bobby, but Rob Fross, 25 years old, and you have just a couple minutes to give him some worldly advice, what advice would you give to your younger self?
As a financial advisor, or just as a business person in general?
As you looking back and knowing who you were at 25, what advice would you give yourself?
I think be patient. At 25, I was still trying to decide what I was going to do with my life, and I thought it was going to come really quick. And, I had lofty goals. I wanted to take care of people, but I didn't exactly know how to do it. And I would just say be patient, because I struggled for a time. And I think the advice, at least it worked for myself, was never stop learning. When you're green, you're growing. When you're ripe, you're rot. I picked up every book on success, business success, relationship selling. I read and listened to every guru there was, and it allowed me to kind of mold my thinking to try to be likable, make people around me like me, and to build a practice where you serve the client and enhanced people's lives. And so I think maybe not just one, but maybe those would be the two pieces of advice.
Yeah, very good. Any particular, you mentioned Dale Carnegie, so I'm going to assume How to Win Friends and Influence People is on
Yeah,
your bookshelf. But is
for
there
sure.
another book or another author that we could?
I read every Zig Ziglar book. I went and saw Zig before he passed away. He was an amazing man. Brian Tracy, I think, really, really gets it. So, those are two that just jump right off my head. I everywhere I went, when I was in the car, I felt like I was learning. Of course, back in those days, it was not, I couldn't just on my iPhone pull up the awesome Mike Baker podcast and listen to him. So I was listening to cassette tapes, in my car. But everywhere I went, I felt like I was learning. And I feel like, especially, wholesalers that spend a lot of time in the car, that, music is just a waste of time. Spend that time while you're traveling, enhancing yourself. Enhance yourself personally. Do whatever you can to be working on yourself and motivating yourself to do a better job serving others.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent and fan, I suppose, of Zig Ziglar's University on Wheels
Yep.
concept, and did that myself. Question number 2, a little more fun here, and hopefully it'll be fun at least. Rob, if you could have any superpower, which one would you choose and what would you do with it?
Ugh. It's funny. My son and I have this conversation occasionally. He's 15, so we have some pretty interesting conversations. Um, I think the ability to truly know what other people are thinking would be a superpower I'd love to have. I've done my best to try to pick up body language and know what people are thinking, but I think, and maybe to even enhance that further, here's a good one. If I could see myself the way others see me, that would be an amazing superpower. I think that we would all be better people if we could see ourselves the way that others view us.
I don't know that I would call it redemption, but you just put a thick layer of icing on a cake for us. We've had a lot of guests want the ability to read people's minds, but we've not had anyone, I believe, take it to the next level, Rob, and say so that they could see how people view them. That's pretty interesting. Appreciate you sharing that with us. Um, I want to tell you personally, thank you. I've known you for several years, met you on the road, and I've always admired what you and your brother have put together, and appreciate you being on the show today. I'm sure I can speak for all of the thousands of advisors and other wholesalers that you've interacted with, and especially your clients, and say thank you for being you. We all appreciate you very much. Wish you much success and fortune, both now and in the future. And as we say on the Awesome Wholesaler Experience podcast, Rob, it's about the journey, and we definitely wish you well on yours. I look forward to seeing you again soon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today. Hope you've enjoyed this broadcast. And if you haven't already done it, go ahead and hit that little subscribe button. Definitely appreciate you subscribing to the show. And if you want to join the notification squad, there's a little bell there, and you'll be notified every time that we drop a new episode like we did today. Here at the Awesome Wholesaler Experience podcast, we are on a mission to get 1,000 new subscribers this summer. Not going to be easy. Going to need your help doing it. So definitely appreciate you subscribing. And if you think it's worth it, go ahead and share this episode with your colleagues and friends. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for supporting the show. And as always, thanks for being awesome. Bye, everybody.